Hi, and welcome to the State of Soy. I'm Katie James, Public Relations Manager for the Iowa Soybean Association. This month, we're coming to you from our Board of Directors meeting and policy conference in Des Moines. This might be the off-season for growing soybeans, but the world of agriculture never rests. On this episode of the State of Soy, we'll travel to Mexico to see how the new trade agreement is impacting dairy farmers and why it matters to Iowans. We'll make a stop at the Iowa Land Investment Expo to get the latest on farmland values. And we'll hear from an Iowa farmer leading the way when it comes to conservation on the farm. And we'll show you how the Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver in 2020. And we begin today with words from Governor Kim Reynolds, a speaker right here at our ISA meetings. She addressed those in attendance with thoughts on how the new legislative session impacts agriculture. We had a chance to talk with Governor Reynolds about another very important year for Iowa farmers.
In the condition of the state, I said we should not just plan for 1 year, but we should look at the next decade, and I believe the Invest in Iowa does that. So it reduces income taxes, 10% across the board for all Iowans, 25% for a lot of lower income Iowans. It provides sustainable funding for our mental health system. It reduces property taxes by taking the funding off of the property taxpayers and moving it to the general fund. And probably the biggest legacy that the Invest in Iowa Act will have is it infuses significant funding into water quality, conservation, recreation, and quality of life. And I believe that's an investment that will help us recruit and retain the next generation of Iowans. I did the executive order for B20. We're excited to do that first in the nation to really help drive use and making sure that our state vehicles can use a B20. And what I'm loving about that is I've talked to Governor Noem, Governor Ricketts, Governor Parsons, and they're all looking at doing something similar in their state. So from a regional perspective, we can help drive domestic demand, which is critical for our farmers and our rural communities. So I'm excited about that. And now we have counties in Iowa. Dickinson County was the first where they're implementing that same structure for county-owned vehicles, so we can really scale this and I believe really start to make a difference for the industry. And in addition to that, then we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place. And so I'm putting an additional $2 million into the infrastructure fund. I think that makes it a total of $5 million. So that's another thing that we're doing to try to drive domestic demand. Good news at the federal level with the 5-year extension for the biodiesel tax credit. So that really starts to provide some predictability and stability. And we're going to continue to hold EPA accountable. It started with the Japan trade agreement, and that was a first phase also. So they're going to come back and continue to work on that. Finally, getting USMCA to the floor, across the line, and up to the president. Number 1, 2, and 3 trading partners, export markets for Iowa. So that's really important, not only for our farmers, but for manufacturing and small business owners. The Phase 1 China deal, I think, is a step in the right direction. Again, we need to, follow up. There's an enforcement piece of it this time, I think, that the administration feels really good about that maybe has been lacking in the past. So really a big deal, though, for our soybean farmers and our hog producers. There's opportunity there also for ethanol, hopefully maybe some biodiesel, DDGs. I love what I'm doing. I am so blessed to be serving in this capacity. I love this state. It is filled with just such amazing people. I mean, they make the job what it is. They're, especially with some of the challenges that we've faced over the last several years, they're tenacious, dedicated, grit like I've never seen it, resilience. I mean, the list goes on and on. I love going on trade missions with the members of the Iowa Soybean Association and looking for opportunities to find new markets and really maintain existing markets. But we're one big family. We're one big small community. Empower Rural Iowa is another initiative that I'm passionate about because I want to make sure that all of our rural communities are enjoying the prosperity that we're seeing take place in the state. So I feel like I'm with family. That's what it felt like when I walked into the room. I'm so appreciative of what they do every day.
Governor Reynolds, along with Senator Chuck Grassley, Iowa Secretary of Agriculture Mike Nagg, and Iowa legend Carson King were just some of the key speakers at this year's policy conference. Want to be involved next year? Reach out to ISA Director of Public Affairs Michael Dolch at mdolch@iasoybeans.com. Coming up next on the State of Soy, we'll talk about how the recent passage of the U.S Mexico-Canada Agreement impacts farmers in Mexico and Iowans here at home. Stay with us. This edition of the State of Soy sponsored in part by Ag Processing Incorporated, AGP, a trusted partner of the soybean farmer in the procuring, processing, marketing, and transportation of oilseeds, grains, and related products. Farm Credit Services of America, dedicated to financing agriculture. The entire organization, from the people to the ag-friendly products, services, and support, works to help producers succeed. Farm Credit Services of America, agriculture works here. People's Company, their global perspective grounded in rural farming roots and a drive to continually innovate is what makes People's Company one of the nation's leading providers of land brokerage, land management, land appraisal, and land investment services. And by Bayer. Bayer, shaping agriculture by challenging the impossible. Welcome back to the State of Soy. Farmers here in Iowa are pleased that trade deals are starting to fall into place. Deals that will hopefully open up the trade markets once again. And our southern neighbors in Mexico feel the same way. The products that American farmers send to Mexico and Canada are products those countries need. We talked to a Mexican dairy farmer who hopes the doors stay open to trade.
As a dairy farmer in Mexico, USMCA, formerly known as NAFTA, has meant a lot because I need a lot of inputs that we don't produce in Mexico for my operation to be profitable and efficient. Starting with corn, and soy, and canola that we buy from the US and Canada, it doesn't make any sense that we go further around the world to take it to our operations. We could buy soy from Argentina, Brazil, can sell us corn, but why go all the way there if we can buy from our neighbors? The US is great at producing corn. You know, you have a great corn belt and soy belt in the US, so it gets cheaper. So the farmers there can access the markets, and we as producers in another country, we get at affordable prices a high quality product. USMCA gives us the chance to maintain a stable market for our commodities, not only for buying but for selling as well. Farmers are quite happy in all the three countries because it is a good deal for farmers, because we can access the products and farmers can access the markets and build on that stability of commodities. In the ag sector, I think we're pretty happy. Trade in general is a subject of politicians making their decisions as the day goes, and someday a politician or a president or whatever is the decision-making people, they can wake up in the morning and say, I don't like this, I'm gonna put tariffs on some product, and the other country can retaliate with another tariff in another product. A trade deal like USMCA should be a safety net, and I think it's designed to be a safety net, but it's also up for tantrums in the morning, you know? So I think that could hurt trade globally, and you see it with Brexit, you know, a country that is part of a bigger community deciding to go separate ways. That can happen also with USMCA if one morning one person decides, yeah, I don't like this, I'm gonna head out of it, and we don't know the real impact it could have on us, but I'm sure nobody wants to be isolated in a global economy.
After passing the House and nearly unanimously the Senate, President Trump signed this trade agreement last month. Coming up next on the State of Soy, the Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver.
Hope. It's a hard thing to hold on to in the face of adversity. But it's where you belong. Keep moving forward. Prove to the world you have what it takes. So the next time you feel defeated, don't forget. That grit, that determination, it got you here. Remember, you were made for this.
Join the Iowa Soybean Association at 2 locations left this month for the Research and Results Forums. Coming to you in Washington and in Ankeny, these forums showcase the latest in soybean research, bringing profitability, conservation, and agronomics together to give you the tools you need for a productive 2020 growing season. Register online at iasoybeans.com. Welcome back to the State of Soy. Between weather challenges and trade conflicts, 2019 was a tough year for farmers all across the state. And your Iowa Soybean Association knows that recovery will take some time. Just as those who farm the land are determined to find new ways to be productive and profitable, your ISA team is focused on doing everything possible to help that recovery happen. Like the hardworking farmers we represent, the Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver.
Well, I think Driven to Deliver is a reminder of why we're here in the first place, and that is to deliver results for Iowa soybean farmers. It's been our mission, our call to action, if you will, for more than 55 years. But again, it's a very concise way to say we are not only going to deliver results, we are driven to do that. And I think you put those three words together, it's a powerful statement, a powerful brand, and I think it captures what ISA has been and what we need to continue to be, perhaps even more as we move into the future.
That means enhancing and elevating the voice of Iowa soybean farmers. So I'm driven to deliver a voice. I'm driven to deliver the opportunity for farmers to tell their stories, for them to voice what they need, for them to share what they're doing on their farms, what their goals are for their farms, what their family farming legacy is, and make sure that those stories are heard on the local, state, national, and global level.
So at the Iowa Agriculture Water Alliance, we're all about delivering value to farmers and improving water quality and soil health. We're driven to deliver to implement the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy and those very ambitious goals to reduce our nitrogen and phosphorus losses, and we're delivering value back to farmers, but we're creating public-private partnerships that can help scale up conservation practices for the benefit of farmers and for the benefit of all Iowans.
So I want farmers, when they think of ISA, to say those are the folks that deliver. Those are the folks that represent me. Those are the folks that are helping me be a better farmer. Those are the folks that are delivering new markets and new opportunities for us and are helping me understand those things. So I want them to honestly think about ISA as an organization that delivers on the promises that we've made. I want them to know that we're committed to being good fiduciary agents of their money and their resources. I want them to know that we take integrity and transparency seriously. That we collaborate and partner with everybody we can that's going to help us deliver on the promises that we've made. At the end of the day, ISA is an open book. This is not my money, it is farmers' monies, it is farmers' resources. They have a right to know and they have a right to expect us to deliver results. That's what I want them to think about when they think of ISA.
Driven to deliver profit and sustainability opportunities, ISA is driven to make this year one to remember. Stay with us on the State of Soy. We'll visit the Farmland Expo to check on the latest in farmland values when we come back. This edition of the State of Soy sponsored in part by Ag Processing Incorporated, AGP, a trusted partner of the soybean farmer in the procuring, processing, marketing, and transportation of oilseeds, grains, and related products. Farm Credit Services of America, dedicated to financing agriculture. The entire organization, from the people to the ag-friendly products, services, and support, works to help producers succeed. Farm Credit Services of America, agriculture works here. People's Company, their global perspective grounded in rural farming roots and a drive to continually innovate is what makes People's Company one of the nation's leading providers of land brokerage, land management, land appraisal, and land investment services. And by Bayer. Bayer, shaping agriculture by challenging the impossible. Even as Iowa farmland sits covered in snow, it never stops being a great investment. That was the topic at the recent Iowa Land Expo in Des Moines, which attracted interest from people all across the country. We had a chance to catch up with Molly Aronowitz of People's Company to talk about some of the trends to look for and what topics will be most important for landowners in the future.
In 2019, we're dominated by trade disruption and weather. And so I think that will continue for 2020. I think we'll also have a lot of conversations about sustainability and the landowner and farm operator's role, what conservation means on the ground, and just going back to that idea of consumer demand and their demand for us to address sustainability as we grow safe and healthy food. The weather patterns that we have had in the past year and how they've significantly affected our operation, I think we'll be talking more about how do we weatherproof our farms? How do we mitigate the risk that we've seen in the last couple of years? What have we learned? What can we do to improve for 2020 and beyond? As we continue to be in a bit of an unsettled economy, farmland continues to be a great investment. And there is a high demand for good, productive land. And so I think we'll continue to see that trend. And as farmers and landowners, we have a fantastic opportunity here to show best management practices for improving soil health and addressing water quality. As we think about land value and soil health and water quality, I think it's important to remember that there's two aspects of owning land, of that annual return, and then thinking long-term there of the appreciation of that land value. And so as we look at maximizing production on the best acres, we often, if we're addressing the concerns on those sensitive acres, we often just back into the environmental improvements on the farm by addressing profitability on the farm. As we start a new decade, it's a really interesting opportunity to see where we've been in the last 10 years and what significant changes we've seen in technology and the data. And I think that'll continue in 2020 of looking at how we use data on the farm for precision agriculture, every aspect of the equipment we're using. So that'll continue to be important. We also need to be actively involved in that conversation of what the environmental, social, and the economic piece of sustainability, defining that on our farms and what that means for the consumer.
Speaking of taking care of the land, when we come back, we'll meet a northern Iowa farmer who is leading the way in conservation.
Hope. It's a hard thing to hold on to in the face of adversity. But this, it's where you belong. Keep moving forward. Prove to the world you have what it takes. So the next time you feel defeated, don't forget. That grit, that determination, it got you here. Remember, you were made for this.
Join the Iowa Soybean Association at 2 locations left this month for the Research and Results Forums. Coming to you in Washington and in Ankeny, these forums showcase the latest in soybean research, bringing profitability, conservation, and agronomics together to give you the tools you need for a productive 2020 growing season. Register online at iasoybeans.com. Welcome back to the State of Soy. Conservation is important in agriculture, and there are many farmers doing great things to leave their land better than they found it. One farmer topping the list for conservation efforts is Wayne Fredericks of Osage, Iowa, a farmer who is leaving a legacy of conservation.
It was 28 years ago, about this exact time, when our landscape at that time looked like it did here. We have corn stalks and everything, but at that time we were a conventional operation. We always fall plowed our corn stalks ahead of soybeans. And we froze up early that winter. We couldn't get our plowing done. And I was sitting here in December in a quandary wondering what the heck we were gonna do that coming spring. And I just happened to read an article in Farm Journal magazine there in December issue about a farmer in southwest Minnesota that was no-tilling soybeans with a John Deere 750 drill. In January that year, I visited my John Deere dealer, and he was happened to getting one in. They were going to try it on their farms, and said if I wanted to use it, I sure could, and we did. It worked beautifully, and we never looked back. no-till soybeans is the easiest first step you can take. And we never saw any yield loss. We saw improved profits because we had reduced tillage passes. We had labor savings, we had fuel savings, and it worked well. The yields were as good or better. So it was one of those aha moments that just happened to come along. I say I'm an accidental conservationist because it wasn't by any means something that I sought, it's just something that happened. But the cover crops became more of an awareness type of adoption. We were sitting here in June of 2008 and we were totally flooded out here, water within 50 feet of the house. A day later, Charles City was seeing the same type of flooding on the Cedar River, and 5 days later, Cedar Rapids, Iowa was inundated with the worst flood in history. And it just started to roll around in my mind that, the practices that we have on our farm, and at that time it was no-till and strip-till, they affected not only the quantity and quality of the water for Cedar Rapids, but it definitely plays a big factor for those people. If we can make our soils more like a sponge, that could have a huge benefit to them. I always wanted to lead by example. Even when we were doing conventional agriculture, we wanted to do it well, to have fields out there you could be proud of. And the more you saw how it could work, the more you wanted to do. And you could see it emulate to the bottom line, but that wasn't the main reason you done it. The main reason you done it is because it filled your goals of being a better person, making this country, this farm, surrounding community a more resilient, better community than it was when you first started farming. So I think it's kind of like maybe leaving a bit of a legacy in a way, and I found conservation was my direction that I wanted to leave, a legacy. Now it's my goal was being somewhat like of an educator to help others do the same.
Wayne Fredericks is certainly a shining example of conservation and a great steward of the land. That wraps up this edition of the State of Soy. If you have any comments or story ideas for the show, feel free to contact us at the email below. As we close the show, we leave you with a look at the colorful culture south of the border, as seen through the lens of ISA photographer Joe Murphy on his recent trip to Mexico.